The 911 call was brief, panicked, and almost too perfectly delivered. "Help! They're chasing me. They called me slurs. I think they have a gun." When police found 22-year-old Aaliyah Jennings, bloodied, bruised, and hiding behind a dumpster in East Lansing, Michigan, they believed they had uncovered a modern-day racial hate crime. The city erupted overnight. Social media campaigns exploded with #JusticeForAaliyah, celebrities voiced outrage, and major news outlets framed the incident as another case of brutal racial injustice in America. Aaliyah told the police she had been targeted by 3 white college boys. She claimed they had dragged her from a parking lot, beaten her with beer bottles, called her racial slurs, and left her for dead. In the climate of a divided nation, her story fit the narrative too well. And that's where the problems began. Within 48 hours, 3 white students from Michigan State University were arrested: Brandon Hale, Jacob Merritt, and Shane Collier. All honor students. None had any prior criminal record. Their photos went viral. Their families were threatened. Their names were ruined. One of them, Jacob, even attempted suicide during the investigation. But then something strange happened. The security footage from that night, missing at first, was found by a private investigator hired by Shane's father. The tape showed Aaliyah alone, stumbling through the parking lot, seemingly disoriented, before throwing herself onto the ground and smashing her own head against the concrete. It was disturbing, deliberate. She even looked into the camera, as if checking if she was being recorded. Yet the footage was dismissed by some as manipulated or out of context. Activists doubled down. Protesters insisted the video didn't disprove her story. But quietly, detectives began to dig deeper. They examined Aaliyah's phone records, GPS data, and private messages. What they found changed everything. Aaliyah had been in a secret relationship with Brandon Hale. When he broke it off and started dating someone else, another black girl, Aaliyah's world collapsed. Friends later described her as obsessive, manipulative, and increasingly erratic. She had made disturbing comments weeks before the incident, like, "White boys need to learn what it feels like, and if I cry loud enough, the whole world will believe me." The motive was personal, but the damage became political. Still, the DA hesitated to drop charges against the 3 boys. The media firestorm was too loud. A dismissal would look like surrendering to white privilege. And so, innocent lives hung in limbo, while the court of public opinion raged louder than the justice system itself. Why do we trust viral outrage over verified facts? Eventually, under pressure from independent journalists and mounting evidence, charges against the 3 students were dropped. But by then, their futures were shattered. Jacob lost his scholarship. Shane's family had to move across the country after repeated threats. Brandon dropped out entirely and hasn't been seen publicly since. Meanwhile, Aaliyah's lie unraveled in slow motion. She changed her story multiple times, claimed memory loss, then trauma, then said she never named anyone specifically, which was also a lie. And in a final twist, she sued the police for releasing biased footage. Was she mentally unstable? Or a cold manipulator using America's racial wounds as a personal weapon? The court of law finally caught up. Aaliyah was charged with filing a false police report, defamation, obstruction of justice, and inciting public violence. She cried in court, claimed she only wanted someone to believe her pain. But the damage was irreversible. The city had already burned, reputations destroyed, friendships divided. Even families broke apart over the case. And the question remains, how did one fabricated story nearly start a racial war? She became both a symbol and a warning. Aaliyah's face, once painted across murals, now painted over in shame. Yet on certain forums, she still has defenders. People who insist she was silenced by a racist system. Others believe the entire thing was a government setup. The conspiracy theories around her case are growing, not fading. How many more lives have been ruined because we listened to rage before evidence? And the most chilling part? She's up for parole next year. Would you feel safe living next door to someone who weaponized identity for revenge? The trial was a media circus. From the very first day, Aaliyah's case dominated the headlines. Every detail, from her courtroom attire to her tearful statements, was broadcasted for the world to see. But as the weeks wore on, it became clear that the real story was not the one she had told. It was the one that the media had been too eager to swallow. Aaliyah's defense was simple: mental instability. She claimed she had suffered from severe depression and identity crisis after her breakup with Brandon. Her lawyers argued that her actions were the result of a troubled mind, influenced by deep feelings of betrayal and frustration. The prosecution, however, wasn't buying it. They pointed to her meticulous planning, the way she staged her injuries, and the consistent lies she had told. As the trial progressed, the public's perception shifted. More evidence came to light that painted Aaliyah as a manipulative individual, someone who had been playing a dangerous game with people's emotions and lives. Text messages, phone logs, and social media posts revealed a pattern of obsession and deceit. She had even sent Brandon threatening messages, warning him that if he didn't get back with her, she would make him regret it. But what really stunned everyone were the diary entries. Hidden away in Aaliyah's room, under a stack of old school papers, detectives found her personal journals. They were filled with disturbing writings. She described fantasies of causing chaos and becoming the center of attention. One entry read, "I'll make them all see. They'll regret not believing me when I tell them the truth. This world owes me for everything I've gone through. They'll all see me as a victim, and they won't even know what hit them." The chilling tone of those words sent a shiver down the spines of those who read them. The diary revealed a young woman consumed by her own sense of entitlement, someone who believed she could manipulate a whole system for her own gain. But even with the mounting evidence, Aaliyah's supporters refused to back down. Protesters continued to gather outside the courthouse, holding signs that read, "Free Aaliyah" and "Racial Justice for All." They claimed that the evidence was fabricated, that the authorities had set her up to silence her voice. Some even argued that the real crime wasn't Aaliyah's actions, but the way society had treated her as a black woman. Trigger point. Does the criminal justice system protect the innocent, or does it punish those who challenge the status quo? In the face of this public outcry, the jury deliberated for days. Finally, they returned with a verdict: guilty. Aaliyah was convicted on multiple charges, including filing a false police report, defamation, and inciting public violence. But the real shock came when the judge sentenced her to only 5 years in prison. The outrage was immediate. Many felt the sentence was far too lenient for the damage she had caused. Some argued that her crime was more than just a lie. It was an attack on the very fabric of racial justice. But others believed the sentence was a sign that the courts were unwilling to punish a young woman who had been labeled a victim by the media. Still, the public debate raged on. The case had opened up wounds in the nation's ongoing struggle with race and justice, but it also raised uncomfortable questions about accountability. Could someone be so consumed by their own narrative that they would destroy innocent lives to make a point? Trigger point. Can we trust the justice system when the media and public opinion seem to have more power? Months passed, and the anger faded. But just as the world began to forget Aaliyah's name, something happened that would once again drag her into the spotlight. While serving her sentence in a Michigan prison, Aaliyah was linked to another crime, a brutal attack on a fellow inmate. The victim was a transgender woman named Jessica Collins. According to reports, Aaliyah had been involved in a fight with Jessica over a disagreement in the prison yard. But what was shocking was the brutality of the attack. Witnesses claimed Aaliyah had stomped on Jessica's head while shouting racial slurs. Some even said Aaliyah had made cruel comments about Jessica's gender identity during the assault. In the wake of the attack, Aaliyah was placed in solitary confinement while the investigation into the incident continued. The media, once again, was quick to paint her as a violent offender with deep-seated hatred. But this time, the public's reaction was different. Many questioned whether Aaliyah had truly changed since her trial. Was her behavior simply a reflection of the same deep-seated issues that had led her to fake a hate crime in the first place? Trigger point. Can someone change, or is their true nature revealed when they think they're beyond scrutiny? As the investigation into the prison attack unfolded, more details came to light about Aaliyah's interactions with other inmates. Some reported that she had formed a tight-knit group of followers who looked up to her as a leader. Others described her as someone who thrived on chaos and manipulation, using her charm and influence to control the people around her. But perhaps the most shocking revelation came from one of Aaliyah's former prison cellmates, who claimed that Aaliyah had confided in her about a disturbing plan to take down those who had wronged her, starting with the people who had ruined her life during the trial. According to the cellmate, Aaliyah had told her that she wasn't done seeking revenge and that she would make the world believe her once and for all. The attack on Jessica Collins seemed to be the first step in that plan. With the media once again focused on Aaliyah's actions, the public began to ask difficult questions. Was she truly a victim of a broken system? Or had she always been someone who sought to exploit others for her own gain? The case of Aaliyah Jennings continues to spark debate, and her story remains a symbol of the dangers of false accusations and unchecked anger. Some see her as a cautionary tale of the consequences of trying to manipulate a system for personal gain, while others argue that the true criminals are the ones who allowed her to fall through the cracks in the first place. What happens when a lie is so powerful it can destroy lives and tear apart an entire community? And when Aaliyah's parole hearing comes in the next year, will she ever face the full extent of her actions? Stay tuned for the next part, or share your thoughts in the comments. Is she a victim or a dangerous manipulator? The months following Aaliyah's second prison incident were marked by a renewed media frenzy. The nation was divided once again, but this time, it was even more personal. Was Aaliyah a victim of a broken system, or was she a predator, someone whose lies and manipulations had cost innocent lives? The questions seemed endless, and they were tearing the public apart. Aaliyah's parole hearing was scheduled for late spring, and the atmosphere in the courtroom was tense. With her violent attack on Jessica still fresh in everyone's minds, there was little chance that her supporters would show up in large numbers. But Aaliyah had become something of a symbol of racial injustice, but also of the dangers of unchecked lies. Her supporters had dwindled, but the ones who remained were louder than ever. The hearing started with Aaliyah's defense attorney arguing for her release, claiming she had found peace and was a changed woman. They pointed to her alleged remorse, the fact that she had been engaging in therapy and had shown signs of emotional growth. The prosecution, on the other hand, painted her as a threat to society, someone who could continue manipulating and hurting people if left unchecked. The victim's family, including Jessica Collins' devastated relatives, were also present, demanding justice. As the defense and prosecution presented their cases, Aaliyah was asked to make a statement. She stood before the judge, her hands trembling, her eyes brimming with tears. For the first time in years, she appeared truly vulnerable. The courtroom waited in silence as she began speaking. "I've learned a lot in here," Aaliyah said, her voice wavering. "I know what I did was wrong, and I can never take back the pain I caused. I was angry at the world, at myself. But I'm different now. I want to move forward, to be better. Please, give me a chance to make amends." Trigger point. How far can someone go before redemption is impossible? The judge listened carefully, his face unreadable. The audience, too, was silent. Some were moved by her words, but others were skeptical, knowing that the damage Aaliyah had caused went far beyond her own actions. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, and everyone seemed to be wondering the same thing. Was this just another act? The victims of Aaliyah's lies, the families of the men she accused, the people she had torn apart with her deception, were not so easily swayed. Aaliyah had made the world believe in her victimhood, but the truth was, she had been the one causing the harm all along. Trigger point. Is anyone really accountable when the media amplifies a lie so loudly? In the end, the judge ruled in a manner that shocked the courtroom. Aaliyah would not be granted parole. Despite her apparent remorse, the evidence against her was too strong, and the possibility of her reoffending was too great. It was clear that Aaliyah had manipulated the justice system once before, and this time, they were unwilling to take the risk. Her supporters were outraged. Social media exploded with debates, with many calling for a retrial or accusing the system of racial bias. But the case had already done its damage. Aaliyah's actions had cost more than just the lives of the men she falsely accused. They had damaged trust in the very institutions meant to protect us. The public's perception of her varied, with some seeing her as a tragic figure, others as a dangerous liar. In the years that followed, Aaliyah remained in prison. Her story continued to haunt the nation, a grim reminder of how lies can destroy lives, how the pursuit of attention can go horribly wrong. But as time passed, she faded into the background, just another criminal in a system too broken to fix. Her case is now often cited in debates about race, justice, and the consequences of social media. It has become a cautionary tale, one that forces us to ask difficult questions. Who do we believe when we don't know the full story? And what happens when someone abuses the power of victimhood? As for Aaliyah Jennings, she remains in prison to this day, serving her sentence for crimes that altered the course of many lives. But even behind bars, her story continues to resonate. One of manipulation, betrayal, and the ugly truth about how far some people will go to create their own narrative. Trigger point. Can we ever truly trust anyone again after such a betrayal? Her case, like many others, stands as a haunting reminder. It's easy to build a story that gets attention, but it's much harder to live with the consequences when the truth comes to light. Is it possible to redeem yourself after so much harm has been done? And can society ever forgive someone who played the ultimate game of manipulation? The debate rages on, but one thing is clear: Aaliyah Jennings' life and the lives she destroyed will never be the same.